Jan Siegel. And Trist Curlis. Thank you all for being here, and thank you. And earlier in the year, I did a feature on transfer for the 50th anniversary, sort of getting a new year. And I was privileged to talk to each of these folks individually, but so excited to have them here collectively because the word on the street is they've got chemistry. So, since we're at the Grammy Museum, why not kick things off a little bit by talking about your history with the Grammys? Because there's a lot of it, and there's a bunch of records. I'll just try to mention a few, or interesting stats. They're one of only 4 artists ever in Grammy history to win 7 consecutive Grammys for 7 consecutive studio albums. The first vocal group to win Grammy Awards in the pop and jazz categories in a single year in 1981. In 1985, the Manhattan Transfer's Vocalese album made history as the single greatest jazz Grammy-nominated album in history in 1 year with 12 nominations. And there may be more than that I didn't catch, but that's a good start to show you what sort of tie-in they have with this little statuette you see up here on the screen. So I'm wondering if any of the nominations or awards or years or even performances on the Grammys stick out in your mind. You started winning in, I think, 79. I think those might have been... Okay, all right. Who's keeping score? Any of those moments, you've had some great performances on stage too. So either the winning or the performing stand out for you.
Well, I remember 1980 at Radio City Music Hall because the arrangement for Best Vocal Arrangement was in the afternoon, and I remember tripping on my dress, going up to the podium, and then we performed that evening, and I can't tell you what a thrill it was to start Birdland. You know, Radio City Music Hall has an elevator that starts at the bottom and comes up to the stage level, and we started Birdland at the bottom for that incredible Jocko intro. And by the time we got to the top, we heard the roar get louder and louder, and then all of a sudden we were there, and there was like incredible, our heroes, you know, like all these celebrities were in the rows right in front of us, and we started Birdland. It was a thrill.
Any of the rest of you have a special moment that comes to mind?
Well, I think another special moment was when we did our Mecca for Moderns album. We commonly refer to it as Mecca for Morons. And we won, like you had mentioned, we won in pop and also in jazz. We won for both from New York City and for Corner Pocket. Yeah. I remember we were in Hawaii. We couldn't make it because we were doing a gig in Hawaii, and we were up in a hotel room and we were having a party. I won't get into details about that.
That's it.
And it was just amazing. I mean, it was just astounding that we won in both. Really.
The fact that you were winning simultaneously for The Boy from New York City, which is about as pop as it gets, and then also being rewarded simultaneously for kind of the moment where you were really starting to be taken seriously by the jazz community and doing a pure jazz album, and having both those things happen at once was kind of wonderful, right?
Yeah. Then after the show, correct me if I'm wrong, I have no memory of my life anymore, but after the show there was a dinner, and we sat up and sang Corner Pocket with Count Basie. We went, he's sitting right there, it's him! So that was icing on the cake.
And now we're at 50, And that's a number you've had a chance to prepare for a while. Were you prepared to see like the ticker on the odometer click over to 5-0 for yourselves as a group?
Silence. Chris, what do you?
Were we prepared for the album?
Well, the album later, but just the
50
milestone.
years. No. If you would have said that to us when we started, I went, well, I mean, you don't look that far ahead, you know. But it's been such a blessing, such a grace, you know, that we've been able to do this for so long. You know, travel around the world, and that people still want to come and hear our music.
Yes,
It's
we
really
do.
awesome.
If there's one thing the world needs, it's harmony.
To go back to sort of the origin, I know that I've seen the date October 1, 1972, and I didn't ask you this before, I don't think, when I talked with you, but just to put everything in context, like before and after, there's some gaps. Like Tim had started a group with that name in 1968 or something, but it didn't really have anything to do with what you started in 72. And then after 72, it still took you 3 years to get signed. So we're not yet at the 50-year anniversary of your first record together. But is there anything about October 1972 that you're able to like pinpoint? Yes, we know the date actually when this all started.
Well, it kind of came together, you know. I mean, it was so serendipitous in a way that how we met, you know. You want to hear the skinny of the story? You probably heard it a million times. Okay, you know, Tim was hacking a cab. So Tim had an earlier group that was called the Manhattan Transfer, and they were together for a couple of years, and they did one album on Capitol Records called Juke It. But that group broke up, and Tim was hacking a cab, and he wanted to do a demo record because he was trying to get a deal. And one night he picked up Laurel Massey, who was a waitress and a singer, and he said, "Hey, how you doing? What do you do?" I sing. Would you like to sing on this demo I'm doing? I can't pay you anything. And she said, okay. And then another night, well, you tell the next chapter.
Well, it sounds like the script for a B movie, it really does. It sounds like we're making it up. But it actually happened through a cab in New York City. And I was with my group, Laurel Canyon, and we were just about to get our own record deal on Chess Janis, I think. And we were backing up a wonderful singer from Nashville named Diane Davidson. And we had just finished a gig at Kenny's Castaways in New York City, and we were having a party after the show in a hotel. And Tim picked up our conga player, our percussionist, who put his drums in the back seat and sat in the front with Tim, and yak, 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 what do you do? Besides drive a cab, I'm a musician. Oh, you want to come up and meet Diane Davidson? And we had a wonderful guitarist named Matt Gaydon with us as well. Tim parked the cab, came up, and he said, and I met him, and he said, I'm doing a demo of, I'm doing a solo record. I want to get myself back in the business. Do you want to sing on it on spec? I said, yeah, here's my number. So I showed up at the session, and there was Laurel. Okay, so now Tim, Laurel, and I find ourselves together. And
Okay.
Yeah.
Chapter 3. So Laurel is I'm performing at the time in Grease on Broadway. I'm swinging out on the rope. I was in the original cast of Grease. And Laurel was dating the drummer, so I used to see her backstage all the time. And the guys in the Grease band were doing a gig after our show. So I went down to see them, and Laurel and Janice and this other girl were singing. So, and then they did some solo stuff, and I went, wow, I mean, they're really great, you know. I remember Janice was 19 years old, and she sang Aretha Franklin's Dr. Feelgood. Oh! And I went, oh my God, I can't believe the voice coming out of here. Well, I had to leave really, really after that. I couldn't stick around. But then Laurel approached me. She said, you know, Janice and I and this other guy put a group together looking for fourth singers. Somebody recommended you. would you be interested? And I was totally not interested in being in a group because I was always on my own. But I went down to Tim's apartment because I wanted to meet Janice.
Cherchez la femme.
Anyway, so then we sat, we talked about this concept that Tim had about doing 4-part harmony, closed harmony, kind of like the big band groups, like the Count Basie sax section, and applying it to contemporary records. And I'm going, wow, that sounds really, really cool, and the whole scene in New York, everything was changing, Vietnam was over, a lot of the folk clubs were turning now into cabarets. It was the beginning of glitter rock, and we kind of came out of that scene, and so that's how it began, that's how we started.
And like I mentioned, for those of you who don't know, that we have 2 original members and then 2 newer members who we will get to how they joined. But this is
You're new.
I'm brand new, 43 years. Still working on it.
You don't actually make new girl jokes, do you?
What?
You don't actually make new girl jokes about her, do you? No,
I used to.
That's just
I
me.
used to, till about 2 years ago. And we also have this fabulous guy here.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about him? You want to talk about yourself?
Wait, we'll move progressively to that point. But I'm just interested because I love hearing about sort of the glitter rock connection, and I think Tim's sister was in the Cockettes.
Fan Hauser.
I think she's here tonight.
She's here.
Hey,
We can't see you.
yes, indeed. So Faye used to dress us. What did we have? You had diapers?
Faye had me in, well, I remember Tim wore a Howdy Doody mask around his neck, and I was wearing diapers and high heels, I think. A diaper, which I probably will be wearing again soon.
Well, you see, the whole thing was we wanted people to notice us, and we didn't want to come out in jeans, and so Faye dressed us, to be as outrageous as we possibly could. So with glitter rock, we wore a lot of makeup and everything else, and
Wigs.
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 Janice and I used to wear glitter on our lips.
Which probably accounts for the lead poisoning we have now.
Yeah. But anyway, that's kind of weird. So like the New York Dolls were doing it on one side, and we were doing it on the other. But but we had our sound together. We did. We worked very, very hard in the beginning. 6 months just grinding every single day. Getting our sound of that blend. Of matching the vibratos and everything. So that basically we became that one voice. So we came out, we looked outrageous, and people would say, "What is this?" And then we'd open up our mouths, and they'd go, "Oh, okay, there's something."
And then eventually that transitioned to more nostalgic clothing, tuxes and gowns. And then after that, it got a little more outrageous again, I think, with John Paul Gaultier. And
Yes. So we went uptown with the tux and everything else. It was a classier look. We just kind of did that, and that became, like our logo is like that, and we did that for quite a few years, really until Laurel left the group. She was in a bad car accident and she had to leave, and that's when everything shifted. That was the end of the first wave, and then Cheryl came in. Wow. You want to talk about like when we met Cheryl when she came in?
Absolutely.
I want to hear this. First of all, let me preface it by saying I drove around Janice's neighborhood for about an hour because I knew exactly.
I lived in LA at that time.
Yeah, and I just was quite ready.
This was 1979, right?
Yeah, I lived right near the Hollywood Bowl, and we auditioned. We only auditioned about 7 or 9 women that we got the inside scoop on. I mean, it wasn't an open thing. We asked people, who do you know who could take this chair? We first had to decide that we were going to go on, which we did decide, and then Cheryl came in, and within the first 30 seconds, we knew.
Yeah, she had all the elements. She had the magic, you know. The criteria was A, you got to know how to blend. It's not something that you can teach somebody. It's something that you inherently can hear and do and match. And she had that. And then, we had to look at her solo chops. Can you sing solo? She was fabulous. And then we had to figure out, well, could we get along with you? And we said, well, how do you feel like dressing in the same room with us? You know. Anyway, it was. I think we did Candy. Is that what we did?
We did Candy, and You Can Depend on Me.
Yeah.
And I had 4 Brothers ready in my back pocket if we'd gone there too. I'm such a fan. You know, I had the records. And my manager said, would you like to audition for the Manhattan Transfer? And I thought, let's see, is it the bass, the tenor, any part? Sure, I would love to. So, and I think I fit in also because I grew up with swing Dixieland music. My father was a clarinet player, so I was a natural swinging kind of gal, you know. So when I walked in, it was like a wave went over me with these voices singing together. I'd never heard anything like it. It was just amazing.
I think we opened a bottle of champagne right
We
after
did.
that rehearsal.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
we
thought,
did.
what are these guys? What is going on? I know, party animals.
Another thing's interesting to me, and it seems like serendipity in a way, because you're coming together and you've each got a different vocal range, you're responsible, of course, but it seems like you've each ended up having a different role, sort of personality-wise, or even just the way things run, and that's continued on with the couple of personnel changes, although Tris is not doing exactly what his predecessor did, but even now...
He has other skills.
Yeah. But even now, from what I'm talking to you before, it seems like you have, originally, Tim was kind of the leader of the group in some ways, and I think you've said you felt like kind of the worker bee who accomplished things. But is it possible to describe then and now, with the folks who've come aboard along the way, sort of what the roles are?
I think the roles don't really exist anymore, I don't think. I think everybody is really interested in everything that we do. Because we're not only a creative entity, we're a business entity, and we're friends also. And I think all the roles have sort of fallen away like old skin.
And our kids kind of are still together too. Old skin. Like my daughter is best friends with Tim's daughter, Zoe and Lily. Best friends since way back when. And Janice's son, Gabe, is a very good friend of those. And Ariel kind of led the pack. She was the first baby on the road. So we really had a family and a half out there.
Yeah, I think in terms of the roles, in terms of character, we most certainly did characters back then. We all played that kind of role in a way. Tim was always the hipster. His pseudo ego was El Dorado Caddy. Do you remember LD? Yes, indeed. And you were kind of like
Ingenuous Jewish girl?
And I guess I was kind of like the suave guy.
Matinee idol.
And Laura was kind of the mystery. She would never tell anybody about her past or anything like that.
She was the wasp princess.
I did not know this.
But and then in terms, I think what Janice is referring to though is in terms of our roles within the group, in terms of our participation with the music, I think that kind of evolved over time, with writing and with doing arrangements and stuff like that, where we all started to participate. In the beginning, it was most definitely, Janice and Tim were doing that, and then, when you came in, it was like, it was a whole different shift. In a way. We're digressing. You have more questions? I mean, we can go on and on and on. We'll go down the rabbit hole.
We'll see her there for I have time for. But I just want to let you know that we're going to have about 15 minutes of questions. So I will cut myself short at about 20 minutes and let you get to some of those. But the Vocalese period, when that album came out, and you did a Brazilian flavored album, and if I remember correctly, even though Ahmet Erdogan had been a huge champion of yours, and he's the one who signed you, Bette Midler got him to come down and see you in a club after you'd been basically written off by everyone as a possible contemporary recording act, and then Ahmet Erdogan got it. But then, I think, when you started getting the Vocalese phase or the Brazilian album, maybe he had to be talked into some things about new directions you were going.
Well, he had to be talked into Vocalese. I mean, there was screaming matches between Tim and Ahmet about that record. But we finally got our way, like the petulant children we were. And thank goodness we did. And then we sort of proved Ahmet wrong.
Well, let me ask you about Vocalese, and you're going to hear some serious Vocalese tonight after we wrap up talking here. I think your set might even have an emphasis on that. It's so curious to those of us who don't really quite understand it, but we love what we're hearing. I know that Alan has written Vocalese parts. Famously, you had Jon Hendricks writing Vocalese parts. And I think you were involved in something on the new album. If I'm remembering correctly, was it The Man I Love? Okay, that's
That's Vocalese, yeah.
Okay.
Alan wrote that lyric to the Artie Shore arrangement.
Okay. And so, if I'm characterizing it correctly, it's usually writing lyrics and a vocal part for what were formerly all instrumental parts. But then, on The Man I Love, which obviously is a vocal number, that's adapting an Artie Shaw version of that song. It's on the new album, 50, getting back to the new album. So can you just talk about how difficult that is to learn? And I'm also interested in hearing from Trist on this because, you've been part of one of the biggest a cappella groups in the world, but I don't know if they did Vocalese as part of that group you were in. So I'm wondering what that's like for you, if it was sort of a new skill set you were learning.
Well, while you mentioned that, actually, our group did an a cappella version of their Sing Joy Spring. So we did a lift of what they did, which is why I was able to sing it on the first show I ever did with them.
That kind of blew my mind, actually. What? You know the Harold Lynn song?
It was an accidental trick, yeah. They were looking at me like, what? You know that in 2 weeks? I was like, well, I just sang the bass part to it, being that we didn't have a band, and it happened to be the solo that the other guys all sang in unison. So I heard them rehearse that no fewer than 100 times, just singing it over and over and over. And being a fan of that record anyway, I was like, yeah, we could do that one. I love that tune. It's great.
He had a fabulous group. It's called Impact a cappella. Great group. Some of your you guys are out here, right?
Yeah. Fletcher's here. Yeah, so we didn't do a lot of it, but we actually did do that tune.
How easy are those parts to learn when it's basically you're taking things that were improvised originally and making them fit into this format somehow?
I would like to add to that. Jon Hendricks used to say, and he schooled us during Vocalese and took us to little clubs to sing these songs and just kind of work it up until we had it ready and shiny and bright and ready to sing in the studio, which we've never been able to do since because you don't have that luxury. But he used to say, Just listen to the instrumental. Worry about the lyrics later. So it was real important to him, and he was our teacher, to really dive into the instrumental, maybe even without the lyrics. Get that under your skin, and then throw the lyrics in as a final, as the final stage. So learning it without the lyrics is the key, first of all, because you're the instrument,
Tris, do you want to talk about learning the Charlie Parker break in Tunisia?
Ooh, we're just about, come on!
Well, any of them, it's just repetition. There's some tools that you have, like now there's different apps that'll, especially if things are really fast, if you have some kind of, some really fast thing, at least now you can find something and slow it down, break it apart, say, oh, okay, that's what that is, then sing it, and then do it a little faster. So everyone has their own way, and for me it is that, trying to sing all of those notes, making sure you kind of know what the vibe of the notes and the feel are, and then trying to add the lyrics. And there are many times where John's lyrics, instead of adding a more difficult element, it makes a line easier to sing. There's a few times where it's like, oh, I can never really just sing those notes on even nonsense syllables, but with those words, it just would spill right out. Every time I run into one of those, it just like amazes me. I didn't have the luxury of spending much time ever getting to know John or talking to him, but every time in that moment, I'm just like, thank you, John. This is so much easier now because of those lyrics that I never would have thought of that made this part easier to sing. Every once in a while, there is something that I'm like, why did he choose that? Some of the opposite, where it's like, I can make up something that would be easier. So there's a little bit of individual too. Like for him, it might have flowed right out and made sense, and I have to make my brain make sense of why he said those words. And sometimes it is context, like remembering what the story is that you're telling, and that helps you remember. So it's like all these little pieces together, and hopefully by the time you have to do it, you've done enough tricks that you know what it is.
This is where vocalese differs from scat singing, which is a very personal expression with your own syllables. But vocally, John used to say with vocalese, you need to channel the original intention of the soloist, the timbre and the intention. And so you're channeling in a way, it's not your own personal expression of the piece.
And taking off from that, can we talk about harmony for a little bit? I remember talking with you and you saying that there's things you love doing in your solo career that aren't part of the group, and you can be very individualistic. But you love being the alto, you love being in the middle of the harmony. And I thought that was interesting. Like, there's my spot, right down the lane, right in the middle. And talking with you all, some of you at least, were very philosophical about harmony and its role. And you just referred to harmony. And there's the literal aspect, and there's a little bit of a symbolic aspect that I think the audience feels that doesn't exist in music a lot right now. It's a rare thing in just about any genre. So the audience is experiencing something physically, maybe even when you're on stage, that they don't get those same reverberations of just about any other artist they go see. So can you talk about that, just where that does fit in today's world?
Well, it's about vibration. And the thing about harmony, we live in a very disharmonious world right now. I think it's part of our DNA that we're affected by the sound of chords, by the sound of harmony. The metaphysical level, in a sense, it does affect us. It affects how we resonate. And I think that our harmony, I think it's the combination of our voices, in a sense. I mean, you could take the same vocal arrangements and have another group sing it or something, but it'll sound different because our blend just resonates in a certain way. But I think that that's kind of what it is, and people don't maybe think about that or realize that, but You know, if you, not that I have anything against it necessarily, but if you're in your car and you drive next to the van and the guy is just pumping out a lot of that low end, that affects you in a way, you know? And I think that in a way is a reflection of the world that we live in right now, you know? And so I think the nature of harmony, you know, people want that. They need that in a sense, and that's what we try to give.
There's an aggression too in a lot of music today. That, you know, our music is a little more romantic and warmer. But what Alan says is 100% correct. I mean, it's all vibration, and the vibration that comes from the four of us to you in the audience and to us too. It's healing, I think.
Yeah, I think also the audience, there's a different connection than the same amount of excellence from just a big band, where you can appreciate the excellence and enjoy it, but there's some different level because everybody has the voice. Not everybody can play the saxophone. So the sax section stands up and they play together, and they start and stop together, and they play all these things, and you understand, oh, that takes a lot of work to be together, but you don't really know. You don't really know the amount of hours you haven't experienced. So everyone's like sung in their car, sung in the shower. Oh, I know what it takes for me to just match this person on the radio that I'm singing with. Those four are doing all that madness. It's like, so there's just whether they're conscious of it or not, I think the vocal stuff really gets the audiences more because there's something like, oh, there's a direct appreciation of what it must take to do that, to reproduce that.
Yeah, also, the trick is to make it sound as easy as possible when it comes out of our mouths on stage. The work is, you know, the blood, sweat, and tears builds up to that, so we can let go of all that. It's like an actor learning lines, and then you gotta throw them away and just become that character. It's the same way with our music. We learn it, and then, you know, we become another element of that music without all of the stuff that went on before. So it's real important to feel, you know, it looks spontaneous, hopefully, you know, like the first time we've done it. So I always compare it to acting because it's got the same mechanics involved. So, yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what happens when the chemistry changes, when you've been used to something for so long. And you had a very, very long period where it was the same foursome lineup, starting in 1979 when Cheryl came in, till I think it was 2013 or 2014 when Trist came in. So that's 30, what's my math? About 35 years out of the 50 where you have the same lineup. And then Trist came in, and he's in the same vocal range as, okay, maybe three. But it's not going to sound exactly the same, and certainly the personalities are not going to be the same. So what was that adjustment like for you? And I know there was a little period when Tim was ill and Trist was sort of filling in before it had to become a permanent thing. And so fortunately, when that tragedy happened, there was a fairly smooth transition in place. But were there a lot of adjustments you had to make just in your own heads about how this is going to work?
No, it did sound different because actually Tim had a higher voice.
Okay.
He had a beautiful, light, almost tenorish voice, and yet he loved singing the bass. He loved it, and he did sing the bottom part. Although you two,
Yeah, when we first
switched.
got together, I was singing the bass and Tim was singing tenor, because he had a group when he was a teenager called the Criterions, and in that group he sang second tenor. So when we got together, and I was more of a bass. So, but then we switched after a couple of tunes. We just said, you know what, let's switch, and that became the sound.
But Trist is really a true bass, so we did had to adjust to that resonance, a different vibration, and I think we have.
Yeah, I mean, he brings this wonderful element, the sound that you know, of the bottom, you know, that sometimes we didn't get with Tim, you know. And also, you know, it's like apples and oranges because, you know, Tim actually had small feet. I think he wore a size 7, but it was very, very hard to slip into those shoes. And that's not what we wanted. Nobody could ever slip into Tim's shoes, you know. So, you know, so Tris brings this whole new element to the group, you know. That's wonderful.
And Tris, when I talk with you, you're very humble. So you said something to the effect of, it was like the high school football player who has the poster of Peyton Manning on his wall, suddenly being on the team with Peyton Manning. And of course, you were a little bit higher level than that when you came in. You were this, you know, with this very successful group. But I should certainly understand the feeling. Was it an easy thing to slip into for you, where they made you feel comfortable, or were you having any anxiety about it?
I think the anxiety was just not wanting to mess it up because I revered it so highly, right? So like I appreciated it so much, and seeing these records, you know, they love when I say it this way, but you know, in high school, junior high school, looking at the albums. It's just facts. It's just facts. But people and friends from even that period, wow, Tris, it's so great to see you, you know, living out your dreams. And I usually just for ease and just, oh, thank you, yeah, it's been really fun. But in my mind, I'm like, my dream? No way is this in my dreams. Like, doing something like that, which I did having this other group that I started, that was more of the dream. Oh, I'd love to do something that's like this. I'm not sitting there as a junior in high school like, oh, yeah, someday I think I'm gonna be in this band. This record that I'm looking at. Like, no. There's not, no. So just, I love the music. I got a call to fill in, you know, when Tim had a surgery, gonna be laid up for a little bit, needed a rest. Got the call from Cheryl asking me, and I freaked out, like not even, and I'd done this after doing it, I realized, oh, I've kind of practiced for this my whole life. Even in high school, like the week of a jazz festival that we were going to, there was another group at my school, and basically the bass, like, you know, failed his math test, so he couldn't go to the festival. So like on the Wednesday of the weekend, I got a call, hey, can you come over to our place right now and sing these parts? And I'd been listening to them all year, so I just slipped right in, and we actually won the festival. But so I realized I had been doing that kind of, so having to do it quickly wasn't a big deal. Learn a big kind of an ear, not necessarily just reading all the notes. So I've been listening to the tunes for so long. So the hardest thing was just what's different from what I know it to be. Like, oh, I know this song, or sometimes like, oh, I know this song, but it has like 7 vocal parts on the chorus. Which part do I do? And of course, they didn't exactly have a repertoire of how they work in the new person, because since '79, they'd never had to do it. So I gave them more hints because my group, we seemed like we'd cycle through a new person every year or two. I have to work in a new person, so I knew how to do it better than they knew how to do it, bring in a new person. So it was, I just didn't want to mess it up. I had to be me, but I didn't want it to sound any different. I wanted to try to sound just like the sound I knew. That was the hope, and they kept me around, so I guess I did that part of it.
We threw you a few curves. May I just add, this guy's amazing. We threw him a few curves here and there along the way. What was it? Was it Morse Code of Love one night? And Al goes, we're going to do it. Tris had never done it. We're on stage in the show.
And you started.
This is the best. Okay, this is the best. So we're in Tokyo. It's a club thing, so it's like 4 nights in a row. Middle of the 3rd night, you know, did a set already. 2nd set's coming. Trickle's on the set list, and Al, we're sitting next to each other, and Al just looks at me, he's like, I don't want to do Trickle. Do you know Morse Code of Love? I was like, you know, and I'm like thinking, and it has another, Baby Come Back to Me is like the parenthetical title. So all I said was like, oh, is that did it? He's like, yeah, let me tell your own that we're gonna do. Like, that's the only information he had, was that I recognized which song that he meant.
The amazing thing is that you got it. You were there.
Does that a lot.
You just had it.
And again, because I've been listening, and so many, even the doo-wop tunes, I was like, is this one that I actually get to stay singing bass, or is it like you sing one note, then you have to sing up in the chorus, sing one note? And so he's like, no, I think it stays. I'm like, okay. Mentally, I'm like, what are the other things that I'm gonna mess up? I was like, do you do it just like the album? And I'm throwing him under the bus, sorry, Al. He's like, oh yeah, we do it just like the album. So I get my iPod out. I get my iPod out, I'm listening. It's a board fade, right? It fades out. I was like, do you end it like that, like a board fade? He's like, oh, no. Oh, yeah, you end it. This is why I know.
Very spontaneous.
This is why I know which questions to ask. But then he's like, yeah, you just end it, and then it just ends. I'm like, okay. And I have to say the whole set was the best set of the, because everybody on stage is just like, oh boy, that song's coming up. We haven't even run with the band. Tris has never sung it. Hope we make it through. There's some kind of juice in the whole set about it.
That's right. We don't want to over-rehearse. When you do that, it kind of falls into a run. So
I've definitely never over-rehearsed in this
My other
project.
favorite story is Birdland, the big band arrangement. Cheryl.
Oh, when we do a big band arrangement, it's a little different in a section where there's a sax soli section. Well, still new at this. He was, you know, we're doing the song. All of a sudden, instead of what Tris does, you usually come in with a yes, indeed he did, yes, indeed he did, yes, indeed. And there's a big sax section there that nobody had told Trist about. So it's coming up, and I look at him and I go, crazy sax section.
Well, so the little preface of that is, so it was at a symphony gig. It was a Christmas symphony show. So in the Christmas symphony show, oh look, there's a big band. We can do a couple of the big band arrangements. So the whole concern, you know, of your own and everybody, we're all thinking about, oh, let's do starts and stops with the orchestra for all these Christmas songs that we haven't been doing. Let's make sure we're on the right page. And so I was focused on, oh, I need to know these Christmas songs I haven't done. So I was so focused on that. So no one had really thought about Birdland, which I'd done many, many times by then, but just not the big band one. So yeah, as it starts, she's just like, do you know about this crazy horn part? And that's all she said. Do you know about this crazy horn part? And then we're like, down this, and I'm like,
And I went,
crazy horn part, what is that? What does that mean? Do I sing a crazy horn part? I have no idea. So, and
I held you back.
I looked at your own. His eyes were just as big, saying, "Oh no, I forgot about this too." So everybody on stage would be doing. Then right when it, luckily, it's just an inserted spot. So right when I'm supposed to stop, she just kind of grabs me, like, okay. She just points it. So I'm watching, and then I'm also like, oh, this is really cool. This comes like bebop, fugue. I'm like, this is really cool. And then I'm realizing I sing next, I think, but I don't know where it is. And luckily, the way that the arrangement ends, it does the same kind of a cue that it does in the normal version. So I went on and
you killed it.
yeah.
I scared you to death, but you killed it.
So that's the sign for Trist hasn't done this, is crazy horn part.
Maybe you can throw out an oldie of him tonight just for fun. No. So many questions for 50 years, and I'm gonna cut to now because you can't hit everything. But so you got a new album called 50 with an orchestral. It was a pandemic album where it was pieced together in an interesting way, and it's always lovely to hear you guys with an orchestra. And I want to, of course, ask about the tour that's following now too. But first, just quickly, anything you would say to characterize for the people who haven't heard 50 yet, what they can expect if they get that now?
Well, to give you an idea of what we had to do, in 2019 we did a concert in Cologne, Germany, with the WDR Funkhouse Orchestra. And it was wonderful, absolutely delightful. It was such an uplifting experience for all of us. And at the end we said, you know, this is great, we should try and do something together. And everybody agreed. So in principle, we talked about it. Then the pandemic hit. And so the idea was put on the shelf for a year. And then in 2020, we started to talk about it again. And it unfolded that, yeah, let's do this. And so we had to come up with a concept of what it was, and seeing that it was going to kind of coincide with our 50th anniversary, we said, well, maybe we should do an album that kind of shows, 50 years and the transitions of the group, different sounds, stuff that were either hits or songs that we really loved, and so on and so on. The problem was that with the pandemic, we could not get together and record. So once we picked the songs, when we picked our arrangers, orchestrators, vocal arrangers, got all that done, our band in New York, led by Yaron Gershovsky, who you're going to see tonight, they put down all the rhythm tracks in New York. And then they sent that to Germany. And then on top of that, the orchestra played. To complicate it a little bit more, when you hit an A on the piano here in America, A is at 440. It vibrates at 440. But in Europe, it's 442. So to the ear, it's maybe not that much of a difference, about 7 degrees, a little bit higher. But we had, the pianos had to be tuned here, or everybody had to come up to match the orchestra. And then when that was done, then we did our vocals in Los Angeles. And then it was then our producer, Dave Thomas, and our mixer, yes, Tony Shepard, who's here tonight, I believe.
All of them are here.
Yeah.
They're the best.
And also Vince Mendoza is here, one of the arrangers.
Yes, sir.
And Yaron Gershovsky also arranged George Calandrali. We had some
Andrew
wonderful
Kessler.
Andrew Kessler.
Andrew Kessler.
Wow.
You'll hear it. You'll hear it on the record. They're amazing.
So then they had to fly over to Germany to mix it together, then fly back here, do a little bit more mixing, and then finally the album is done.
We also picked tunes that we felt could benefit from a symphonic treatment, so that left out, some things that were hits or whatever, more obvious tunes, but things like Twilight Zone certainly deserved a more symphonic treatment, and other pieces as well.
I've just got a note, on a personal note, that speaking of Twilight Zone, you've got the orchestral version now, and then Jack White sampled it like it's basically the hook of a song on his new album. And I could not believe it when I put that on. I'm like, wait, I was just talking to these guys. This is really
Yeah, that was a wonderful homage. Jack, he got in touch with Jay Graydon and I and said, well, listen, we wanted, I have a song that I'm working on and everything, and it's kind of based on Twilight Zone and Night in Tunisia that were, and so it worked out. Everything was planned, and then if you listen to his latest album, it's on there. It's called Here in the Twilight.
It's amazing. I
it's
can't
so
believe
cool.
it makes it work.
Yeah.
And two songs incorporated in there, so it's amazing. Well, talk about the tour now to wrap up on. It was initially, when I was hearing about it, 50th anniversary tour, because that's obvious. And then at some point along the way, farewell tour got tagged on there as part of the advertising. And I think we're all hoping that this will be like Sinatra or Cher or Motley Crue, or it's a fake farewell tour. Yeah, and you'll have a couple more farewell tours at least after this. But what caused the decision? Was it because 50 is a nice round number, or was it because you just reached that point where traveling makes it not worth it for those great moments you get on stage at this point, or what's behind that decision?
Well, it is physically harder the older we get, and how travel has become just a bitch. It's really difficult. It used to be so easy. I can remember years ago, you go through customs, you just wave, and Everybody, no security, no shoes off, and then Janice and I were taking babies along, and that was even easy, and Alan and Angela. But now it's trudging. It's quite a tough job, and I think it is, it is a good thing to stop at 50 is just a beautiful number. And again, unbelievable that it's been 50 years. So, for now, this is going to be.
Yeah, I think
Next
also
year.
it's become much, much more challenging to travel in the world. Going through COVID and now it's just harder, much harder. So time will tell. We'll see what.
And our voices, we're a bit older than when we started, and the voice changes too. The range, the width, the elasticity, and travel makes that harder too because you're not getting enough sleep. Blah blah blah. Anyway, you know the rest. You know the story.
It's harder for a vocal group, I think, to last longer. Many vocal groups just stop at a much earlier time than we did. It's just because of the nature of what we do. The whole solo singers can lower keys and nobody really notices or cares. But with a group, if the arrangement is lowered more than a half step, say, it's muddy and it wasn't intended to be that way. The harmony doesn't ring. It's more difficult.
Can we expect at least albums to come and occasional live performances? This isn't like a total retirement, right? Or is
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we're not stopping.
Well, thank you so much for this, and I know we have a special moment coming up with someone from the Grammy Museum who is going to accept something for you. Oh, thank you. I just got that. Okay.
That's why I'm here.
Okay. Audience, right here in front.
So, y'all did a Kickstarter right around the pandemic or just before the pandemic, tied into a documentary.
Yes.
Where are we with that?
Okay. So there was a lot of work that's been done on the documentary. Interviews, digitizing material. It's all, and we were really moving really fast with it until the pandemic hit. And then we had to shut down because we couldn't do anything more. So we are still working on it, and it's going to happen. So we're picking it up, and so
So just keep waiting.
please be patient, and it's absolutely without a question going to happen.
I can't wait.
Yes.
Any other questions? Oh, okay.
I started as a child. I remember the first
That's
time
good.
I heard. First time I heard childbirth, I thought my head was going to explode. I was a kid. I was like, how on God's end did they do this? Especially with John Henry. I'm a singer. I'm an entertainer, and I still, my head just vibrates when I hear that. How? I know you're talking about John Worthington. How did Jimi Hendrix and Roth influence you? Because you took it from their stuff and a whole other level. It's amazing.
How in God's name did they
What a
do
great
this? This is like a
question.
good question overall for everything.
That's a great question. And Lambert, Hutchins, and Ross were absolutely a strong influence. For me, Dave Lambert's vocal arranging was stellar because he could make three voices sound like an entire orchestra. And I really kind of analyzed that and studied how he did that. And John, we've been doing John's stuff from the very get. We did Doodlin', very, very early on. We did I Want You to Be My Baby, which John wrote as well. Four Brothers, of course, we've been doing John's stuff early on, but we are total students of Lambert Hendricks and Ross. Annie Ross's incredible swing and her acrobatics in the upper area. We adore them and we idolize them.
I think the difference between a four-part group and Lambert Hendricks and Ross, they weren't built to blend.
No.
They were three separate instruments. Three soloists all the way down, and some of the most amazing vocal. Which you were playing the other day, John Hendricks solo on.
Yeah, so on Cloudburst, if
Oh
you can
my
find
God.
it like in person at the Trident, it's a John Hendricks solo concert. It's not a Lambert Hendricks and Ross solo concert. And if everybody who knows Cloudburst, you know this very quick. This particular recording, he does the entire thing in less than 2 minutes. That's how fast it is. And you feel like you can actually still hear all the words. That's the really amazing thing. I feel like, and you're listening to it, and it's like the bass player like can't quite keep up with the band. And all this just playing quarters, just like he can't physically, like the band is like going in and out. Anyway, find the live in person at the
It's the
Trident
most
version of
amazing
Cloudburst.
vocal piece of all time. You've got to find this. You think that blew your head off? This will blow your cap off.
They're
and
all
then
pretty
your-
fast, and this one's just a little faster.
You bet.
There's guys, the people in the back.
Question? Oh, hi.
Hi.
Sitting here 50 years, been listening to your music and singing all along. I'm so grateful and I'm so thankful to be here tonight. I got the text today. I got a ticket. I want to say thank you for your music, your hearts, your lives that you've poured into this, because when we hear all of the music for the 50 years, it touches our lives. This is what we've lived through, I've lived through. And I have to say, I want to say thank you so much for the messages that you have in your songs. I go to karaoke and I sing operator all the time. Thank you. And I want to say thank you for being bold and being great, just great talent and a great example for us to follow. So I want to say thank you so much.
One last quick one.
So about 40 years ago, I saw Weather Report do Birdland at the Hollywood Bowl. And then they brought you out to do Birdland again with them.
It's crazy.
It was amazing, and you can find it on YouTube. You found it the other day. But the question is it different adapting somebody's work when they're still running around and doing it? You might end up on a stage together.
Yeah, that was insane. I mean, we first Weather Report does Birdland, and then I don't think the audience, they weren't
They didn't
really
know.
hip to it at all. Thought, okay, end of their show. And then that was the Hollywood Bowl, where that also was a poo-poo platter. You know, the whole stage went around, and we were coming out. And then they stopped, and then they started hitting that. And
In
it
a
was
different
so,
key.
a different key, and it
Yes.
was so fast. Janice and I went, oh my God! It was so fast and so exciting. I think, you know, the audience went nuts. We went nuts. You don't get that chance very often, so that was incredibly
To
special.
sing it with Joe Zawinul was
Oh.
pretty incredible. Victor Bailey.
Yeah, one of those moments.
One more question?
Okay, one more.
All right. Can you talk about working with Gene Perling? And I hear there might be an interesting story about a session with Claire Fisher.
It's Andrew Kessler.
Well, so we were up in San Francisco. We were playing at the Fairmont Hotel, and we had a big band there. And one of the guys in the band came up to us, and he said, "Have you ever heard this group Singers Unlimited?" And I went, "No, I knew about the Hi-Los, but I didn't know about Singers Unlimited." He said, "Okay, here, listen to this." And I remember when I listened, I was absolutely floored. I could not believe the blend, the harmony, and we all talked about. We said, "We got to do this. We have to do this. This is amazing." So we got in touch with Gene, and on the Extensions album, we did Foreign Affair. And that was the first one that we worked with Gene on, you know, and we still have the tapes, you know. Hi everybody, this is Gene, and this is how it goes, and he would just play the little melody and stuff like that, and we would run it. And then on Mecca for Moderns, we did Nightingale Sang at Berkeley Square. And
Oh well, you want the story about Claire.
About Claire.
All right. So when we did Foreign Affair, we needed someone to conduct us. It was a cappella, and Jay Graydon was behind the controls. We needed someone to conduct us, and Jay wanted to bring Claire Fisher in, and we used to record at Jay's house, and it was very hot in the studio. It was a very tiny little room. So Claire took his shirt off, as he was wont to do, apparently. And he was, you know, kind of preening for me and Cheryl. And he conducted us singing Foreign Affair. Totally.
Carrots too. He was standing there eating carrots.
He was eating carrots. I don't remember that part.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
But Claire was absolutely brilliant. I mean, he, you know, Gene and he really trusted Claire to be able to do this because Claire had the ears to hear that and to be able to do that. For it was such a thrill working with him. You know?
And as Alan mentioned, with every vocal arrangement, he would send a cassette of himself playing through the arrangement really slowly and talking about the choices he was making with the voicings. I thought about this, but then I settled on this, and I think it moves nicely to this. And it's incredible to... I still have cassettes,
Yeah.
Those are worth a
And those
lot.
that are not familiar, so Gene Perling was the leader of the group The Hi-Lows, as well as the Singers Unlimited. And so he did a number of charts for us.
I think his only Grammy, if I'm not mistaken, is Nightingale Sang at Berkeley Square. That's his only Grammy he ever got. Wow. That's thrilling.
He did the Star Spangled Banner for us, as well as Joe Beam's Mojinia.
Yeah, Embraceable You, we did for us.
The Christmas one,
Oh yeah, he did
which one? Couple.
a couple of them. He worked with Johnny Mandel
Yeah.
on our Christmas record. And did
Did Snowfall.
Snowfall.
You could do worse than Johnny Mandel and Gene Perling on
You
your album.
know, Axe. Snowfall.
Yeah, Snowfall.
Yeah.
Well, we're about to have a presentation from the Grammy Museum, or to the Grammy Museum, I should say, followed by a performance. And I don't know if you want to say anything to set up the performance, or you just want to surprise people. But
Well, we're going to donate some of our original vocal arrangements to the Grammy Museum, and a couple of these charts we're going to perform tonight. So.
thank you. We've learned so much tonight about vocalese and diapers and things we didn't know about. So, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take it away.
Thank you so much. Okay, well, where do we begin? Oh my goodness.
Why don't you start?
Please come forward. All right, well, now let's wait. All right. Now, this, you see, these kids today, I'll tell you, they digitalize everything. In the old days, we used to write things by hand. This is our original chart of How High the Moon, which we sang with Ella Fitzgerald in the Grammy telecast. And it was originally done on one of my first solo record. Les Paul's son was my engineer, and he said, "Oh, you know, my father has this extra outtake of How High the Moon in the Garage. Do you want to sing it? You want to be Mary Ford? I said, yes. Can I be Mary Ford 5 times? So I wrote the arrangement for all-female vocal, and then when we wanted to do the song, I just transposed it so that everybody could sing it. So it's all scribbled in pencil, you kids. You kids. So I'd like to donate that. This is Duke Pearson's Janine, which was written by, this arrangement was written by Richie Cole and Phil Mattson. And again, in pencil, all right? And this is a very interesting lyric by Oscar Brown Jr., which Duke Pearson apparently hated. And this is the, it's upside down. You're going to hear this one tonight. This is the introduction to the arrangement, also in pencil. There's that. And last but not least, we have Birdland. Original sketches in pencil with little drawings of birds. I also have the original chart. This is the original chart. It's kind of yellowed, which is so nice, I think, you know? And yeah, this is all handwritten, just little sketches of, you know, we learn things, and I know the kids today don't do this, but we made everybody learn their solos by listening, as opposed to writing them down. You know, everything is written down these days, but you had to, so I don't have the beginning written down because it's just a single voice, and I have to learn it, Cheryl has to learn it, we all have to learn our individual solos. So this is the ensemble parts. So here's that.
Okay, what I have here, I have the original chart for Twilight Zone that I wrote out here. But I also have here, and I also have this. I don't know if you can see this or not. So this is the original comp sheet for vocals. You could see the process that we had to go through. So we would do like maybe 5 takes or something like that. And then we'd kind of A-B. We'd go through it and pick the best of it, you know? Not like Sinatra, you know what I'm talking about? It's a little bit different process because, yeah. And that's what it went into. It has all the original ink that's all smeared. And what else do I have here? We're going to do the song tonight called Mahogany Hall Stomp.
Which is here.
Which is there. Yeah. So, and this was a Louis Armstrong piece. This was on our album, The Spirit of St. Louis. And this is a kind of a real example of the vocalese stuff. I wrote a lyric, and it was kind of based on Mahogany Hall. Mahogany Hall was a brothel. When Louis Armstrong was a kid, and he used to go and hang out and listen to the music outside at this very famous brothel called Mahogany Hall that was in Storyville. And Spencer Williams, who is a writer and piano player, he wrote Mahogany Hall Stomp that Louis had recorded. And so we did that. So I took Mahogany Hall, I said, okay, and I wrote a lyric that's kind of based on what was going on at that time in Storyville. There was a real separation. Eventually, Storyville was shut down. The whole district was shut down because there were those people that really enjoyed going there, listening to the music. They had the best music, and people would go there and dance and do other things. And then there were the people that were more righteous and more churchgoers and didn't really want that to go down, and eventually they won. So I wrote a lyric that kind of goes back and forth between people that were for it and people that were against it.
It's a great lyric.
And here's a lyric.
I might need those when we do it. Some of these I haven't seen even though I've performed them.
So I just want to say how honored we are that this will become part of the Grammy Museum's permanent collection. For us to be the stewards of this means so much to us, so we really appreciate it. This is really remarkable. And really, one of the things that makes it so exciting is for both visitors when this is on display, but also scholars, to see how they do the work that they do. I think you see the finished product, you hear it, but to be able to look at pieces like this to really understand the process.